People have said that it's the best movie that never won Best Picture. It didn't do well at the box office, but word of mouth and cable TV made it famous. A story with so many layers that fans are still finding new things about it after watching it dozens of times. What happened at Shawshank? A lot of movie fans think this story about friendship, hope and forgiveness is one of the best movies ever. But what if I told you that there are thousands of hidden stories beneath the surface that not even the biggest fans have found? Today we're revealing some of Shawshank's biggest secrets with help from the actors and crew who brought this beloved story to life. There are hidden meanings, underlying tensions and symbolic details all over the movie that totally change how you understand Andy Dufresne's journey. These aren't just random facts. These are the deep insights that the stars have shared over the years, offering fresh ways to view a movie you thought you knew inside and out. From the shocking things Morgan Freeman said about his famous character Red to the hidden methods that made Andy Dufresne come to life to the cutscenes that would have changed the whole meaning of the movie, there was a lot to see. Here is the Shawshank story that hasn't been told. I promise that you will never see the Shawshank Redemption the same way again after we're done. The movie that almost didn't happen. Before we get into what the cast told us, we need to know something very important. There were almost times when the Shawshank Redemption didn't come out at all. Stephen King was skeptical when Frank Darabont first asked to adapt his short story Rita Hayworth and Shawshank Redemption. Not because he didn't believe Darabont was good, but the story seemed too personal and psychological to be able to be filmed. But not many people know that King gave the rights to Darabont for only $1 in the end. You did hear that right. $1. In what King called his Dollar Baby program. He let up-and-coming directors use his shorter works for their own projects in exchange for a small payment. In an interview for the 25th anniversary, Tim Robbins said that King's action gave the cast and crew a lot of freedom. Robbins explained that they weren't making a big-budget hit movie with studio execs watching every scene. Frank had a lot of creative freedom because, to be honest, no one thought the risks were that high. Morgan Freeman said, "It's funny. The movie that would become #1 on IMDb for years wasn't even really thought about in Hollywood at first. It was so hard for Columbia Pictures to decide what to do with it. This strange start led to one of Hollywood's most unusual successes. A movie that got to be great the hard way, just like its main character Andy Dufresne. The jail where Shawshank was made. The choice to film at the Ohio State Reformatory in Mansfield, Ohio, was one of the most important parts of giving the movie a real feel. This huge and intimidating building had been shut down in 1990 because of horrible conditions, only 4 years before shooting started. In later interviews, the group has talked about how much this real prison affected their performances. The actor Clancy Brown, who played the mean Captain Hadley, said you could feel the decades of pain in those walls. You didn't have to do it. The jail was more than just a background. It became a part of the movie. Tim Robbins would sometimes sit alone in the rooms in between takes to get a feel for what it was like to be locked up. The rooms were only 6 by 8 feet. In an interview in 2019, Robbins said that when you stood in one and the door shut, your brain did something very basic. There was real fear. Fans might not know this, but many of the extras in the movie used to be prisoners at that very jail. For the yard and mess hall scenes, director Frank Darabont wanted real reactions, so he hired guys who had actually done time in those places. Their worn-out faces and knowing looks weren't acting. They were going over old events again. This commitment to realism showed up in every part of the production. For scenes set in different decades, the production team even aged the jail walls differently, making them cleaner as the movie went back in time. This is a small detail that most viewers don't even notice. Later, Freeman said that this focus on reality had changed how he felt about the color red. Was not in a movie set as a prisoner. I was playing a man who had lived in that hellhole for decades. There's a change. The people who are behind the people. Many viewers don't know that each of the main actors gave their roles long and complicated backstories. Details were used to guide every move and word in the movie, but they were never directly shown. Morgan Freeman said that he made up a whole criminal history for Red that included a lot more crimes than the one murder case that was shown in the movie. I thought of Red as a man who did drugs in the black community. He was probably in his late 30s or early 40s. He was powerful on the outside, but he lost it all. That's why he can get things inside so well. Whenever something went wrong, he knew who to talk to and how to fix it. This background information described Red's unique role in Shawshank and how he knew right away that Andy Dufresne was different. When Red sees Andy, he thinks, here's another man who had power and lost it all. There is a sense of connection. When Tim Robbins built Andy Dufresne, he did something even stranger. In a director's commentary, Robbins said, I actually made two separate characters. Everyone at Shawshank saw that Andy, careful, methodical, and a little cold. Then there was the real Andy, the one who digs through the wall at night and barely shows up. Robbins' acting was affected by her dual personality in subtle ways that most viewers don't even notice. Robbins keeps his body stiff and gestures to a minimum when Andy is acting like himself in public. But when he is alone, like when he plays opera music over the jail speakers, his body language is more natural and fluid. Most watchers will feel the change even if they can't see it. The most interesting thing about James Whitmore's performance is how he plays Brooks Hadlin, the old librarian who kills himself because he can't adjust to life outside of work. Whitmore said that the figure was based on his own father, who had been depressed in his later years. Whitmore said that the part where Brooks feeds the birds wasn't in the original plot. It was an idea because that's what my dad did in the park after my mom died. That easy act made her feel so incredibly alone. This personal link gave Brooks's short but important plot emotional depth that lasts long after it ends on the screen. That's just one way the actors brought real-life details into their roles, which turned Shawshank from a prison story into something much more human. What most people don't understand about the hidden meanings. There are many hidden meanings in the Shawshank Redemption that most people, even die-hard fans, miss the first few times they watch it. A lot of these hidden meanings have been revealed by the group in interviews over the years, which has changed how we understand important scenes. As Tim Robbins pointed out, there is a pattern in the movie that most people don't notice at first. Andy is often shown in shots where other figures aren't because he is behind bars or through a barrier. Frank would put me behind fences or stairs railings, even when we were outside of his cell. It serves as a visible reminder of how Andy feels trapped in a way that other people don't. By his young age, his past, and his hidden plans. Throughout the movie, this visual theme shows up dozens of times, but most people don't even notice it. When you watch it again after knowing this, it changes how tightly Andy is confined compared to the other prisoners who have accepted their fate. Morgan Freeman added another level of meaning to the famous scene in the movie where the prisoners work on the roof and drink beer in the sun. Freeman said that scene isn't just about a moment of freedom. If you pay close attention, that's when Andy starts helping the guards with money for the first time. It's the start of his secret identity as the prison's business wizard. Red sees Andy making his escape plan piece by piece while everyone else sees a man bringing them beer. It's interesting how this scene hints slightly at Andy's escape. He is actually on top of the prison building the identity that will let him get away in the end. The beer, which seems like a short-term pleasure, is actually the first step in a plan that will last for decades. Most people don't see the depths in even the movie's most famous line. Get busy living or get busy dying is not just a famous line from Red, it's also the main idea of the whole movie. Clancy Brown said that Darabont had written the line on the wall of the production office before the movie was even shot. The whole movie turns into a reflection on this basic choice that people make. There is more to this Rita Hayworth picture than meets the eye. The movie pictures that hang on Andy's cell wall may be the most famous part of the Shawshank Redemption. Next up was Marilyn Monroe, then Rita Hayworth, and finally Raquel Welch. But Tim Robbins said these aren't just decorations or things he used to hide his escape path. They give Andy's trip some background. Robbins said that the signs tell Andy's story. Rita Hayworth, a classic beauty from a simpler time, stands in for the 1940s and 1950s when Andy first shows up. Marilyn Monroe is the face of the next age, which was in the late 1950s and early 1960s and was more sexual and complicated. Last but not least, Raquel Welch in 1,000,000 years BC, stands for the basic or primary. She is really dressed like a cave woman. It's Andy getting rid of society and getting ready to crawl through crap to get clean on the other side. That's what director Frank Darabont said, adding this carefully planned progression gives new meaning to the famous shot of the poster flapping in the wind after Andy's escape. It's not just showing him how to get away, it's also the end loss of his old identity. The last barrier between being locked up and being free. The weather is telling a story. The weather is used to tell the story in the Shawshank Redemption in a way that is both subtle and effective. Morgan Freeman brought this up years after he was freed. Look at how it always rains at Shawshank when bad things happen. The night Andy is attacked for the first time by his sisters, the night the guard kills himself, and the night Tommy is killed. Andy's flight, on the other hand, happens during a storm. When nature is at its most dramatic and furious, matching how tense his breakout was. The most important thing is that we see bright clear light for the first time in the whole movie when Red finds Andy at the beach in Mexico. Freeman pointed out that the last scene is the only one in the movie with really nice weather. Every other scene outside has rain, clouds, or a gray color to it. At the very end the sun really shines. This method of telling a story through pictures is so subtle that most people don't even notice it. Still, it changes how every scene makes you feel. There is always darkness in jail, but there is always light in freedom, real freedom. The shocking truth about the well-known scene Get Busy Living, for many fans, the emotional high point of the movie is when Red finally chooses to go to Mexico while saying get busy living or get busy dying. That's goddamn right. Few people know that this scene wasn't in the first draft. In an interview in 2014, Morgan Freeman shared this interesting fact. The scene where Red decides to go to Mexico and finally picks hope was added very late in the making of the movie. The movie was over, but I felt like something was missing. Because they thought the movie was too long, the company wanted to cut out the whole reunion in Mexico. Frank fought back by adding the scene where I choose to go find Andy on the bus. This last-minute addition changed the meaning of the movie in a big way. Without it, Red's story would have finished with him getting out of jail, which would have left things less clear and not completed his character arc. Freeman said that the movie isn't just about Andy getting away, it's also about Red getting away. He wasn't in jail, he was locked up in his own mind. It's clear from that scene that Red has finally given in to hope after holding it back for decades. This new information changes how we think about the plot of the movie. Red is telling more than just Andy's story. Two men find freedom in very different ways on this trip. The Brooks story was added at the last minute and changed everything. Brooks Hatland, the old prisoner who can't adjust to life outside of jail, decides to end his own life after being released, is one of the saddest characters in the Shawshank Redemption. A lot of people who watch the show don't know that this important subplot was greatly expanded from Stephen King's original book. James Whitmore, who played Brooks, said that the character was only a small part of the comic book. Whitmore said that Frank saw something in this minor figure that no one else did. He knew that Brooks stood for all the men who end up in prison or another mental health facility and can't leave once they've made those walls their home. The choice to give Brooks a bigger part completely changed how the movie made people feel. It set the stage for Red's ultimate release and gave Andy's unwavering hope a devastating counterpoint. There wouldn't be as much feeling in the ending without Brooks. That's why we wouldn't understand how amazing it is that Red goes in a different direction. Later, director Frank Darabont said that studio execs wanted to get rid of the Brooks scene because they thought it slowed down the main story. Darabont said, "I had to fight for Brooks. I told you that without showing you what happens to him. Red's last trip doesn't mean anything. Brooks picked fear. Red picks hope. One doesn't make sense without the other." This information makes Brooks's well-known carving "Brooks was here" even more moving. After a while, Red adds "so was Red before leaving for Mexico." He's not just leaving a note, he makes it clear that he doesn't want Brooks to die and wants a different finish for himself. The warden was based on a real person. Bob Gunton, who played the bad guy Warden Norton, said that his character was partly based on a real jail guard from the 1950s, years after the movie came out, who was later found guilty of making prisoners work on remodeling his own home, versus his lack of morals. Knowing this gives the scene where the warden kills himself new meaning. Gunton said that when the cops show up, he can't handle being treated like the criminals he's ruled over for decades. He can't stand the thought of losing his carefully constructed image as a good man. It's not just the thought of going to jail that scares him. This character trait makes an enemy that might otherwise seem too good to be true to history more believable. The bad warden who quotes the Bible wasn't made up by Hollywood. He was taken from the real past of American prisons. It's not what you think that makes Shawshank good. Most people who see the movie think that the word redemption in the title means Andy's ultimate freedom and justice, but the cast has given a much more complex meaning.
Tim Robbins said that the title isn't just about Andy being saved by his escape, it's about how people can be saved in a place that is meant to destroy them. Andy saves the other inmates by giving them a reason to live and hope. He gets the library back. He carved into the roof and even the walls of his cell. Even though he wants to leave, he makes Shawshank a better place. This new understanding turns the movie from a simple escape story into something much deeper, a reflection on how people can keep their basic respect even when things are at their worst. Morgan Freeman added his own take on it. Red can make things right by leaving Shawshank and finally telling himself the truth, to the parole board and to them. The thing that saves him is when he says he doesn't care what they think of him. After decades of telling them what he thought they wanted to hear, he's finally being himself. This multifaceted view of forgiveness helps explain why the movie has struck such a deep chord with viewers. It's more than just a jail escape story. In all the different ways that the human spirit can be locked up, this story is about freeing that spirit. Because of walls, lies, fear, and finally the lack of hope. The famous finish is very different from this one. The most shocking thing that the cast and team told us was that the ending of The Shawshank Redemption almost didn't happen at all. The famous meeting between Andy and Red on the beach, which is often cited as one of the most happy endings in movie history, almost didn't happen. Frank Darabont said that studio bosses really wanted the movie to end with Red on the bus going to the border with Mexico. They said that showing the meeting wasn't needed because the movie was already too long. Darabont said that they wanted to get rid of the beach scene completely. They thought it was enough to end with Red on the bus full of hope. But I fought for that last scene because the movie isn't really about hope in the end. It's about having hope come true. People wouldn't know what to think if they hadn't seen Andy and Red together on that beach. That's how Red feels throughout the movie. I wanted to end things for them. Tim Robbins added one more interesting fact. It turns out that the last scene was the first thing we shot. Frank wanted to film that meeting before Morgan and I had spent months making our relationship appear real on screen. He wanted it to be a little weird and unsure, like when two old friends meet up again after being apart for a long time. This choice made by the producers gave the scene just the right dramatic tone. Not too sentimental and not wanting in real feeling. Because Robbins and Freeman hadn't yet built up the on-screen chemistry that would make their prison scenes so interesting, the slight restraint in their reunion feels completely real. It's hard to understand why the directors wanted to cut this scene now that we know how perfectly it ends the story. Morgan Freeman said that Shawshank would be a very different movie without that beach scene. He worthy about hope that is more of an idea than something real. That's not even close to as strong. It's more than just a score. The Shawshank Redemption by Thomas Newman has a score that is almost as famous as the movie itself, but few people know how carefully the music was chosen to show the story's emotional journey. Slowly in minor ways the score becomes more hopeful as the movie goes on, according to Tim Robbins. Most people don't even realize it. The music in the early jail scenes is very simple and almost mechanical. The music gets warmer and even happy near the end. This musical development shows how Andy went from being hopeless to having hope, but it happens so slowly that most people only feel what's going on instead of thinking about it. Lothian makes Andy do what he does. One note at a time, it sneaks hope into Shawshank. During the famous Brooks Was Here scene, the sad and gentle music score may be the most powerful part of the movie. It contrasts with the old man's loneliness and fear. James Whitmore said instead it shows how deeply confused and sad he was to find himself free but more locked up than ever. An Academy Award was up for grabs, but Hans Zimmer's work on The Lion King won it instead. Many film experts think this was one of the Oscars' biggest mistakes, since Newman's subtle and emotionally complex score has stood the test of time as one of the best in movie history. How Shawshank, the movie's second life, became a huge hit. It wasn't great at the box office, but The Shawshank Redemption did okay. When it first came out in theaters, it was up against Pulp Fiction and Forrest Gump, and it only made $16 million. A lot less than the $25 million that was spent making it. By the standards of Hollywood, it was a failure. Morgan Freeman talked about what came next. People saw the movie through cable TV and renting VHS copies. When TNT started showing it often, something amazing happened. People watched it over and over again. It turned into soul food. This one-of-a-kind second life turned Shawshank from a failure at the box office into a cultural touchstone. In the 1990s, the movie was not only making money from video rentals, but it was also becoming one of the most popular pictures of all time. Lothian and Nikes pointed out the irony of this path. The company and history had to be patient for a movie about being patient and seeing things in the big picture to be seen for what they were. There's something right about that. Lothian and Nikes' forays from failure to success is a lot like Andy's own. After some failures there was a quiet, persistent victory. Lothian and Nikes said that Andy used a rock hammer for decades to dig a hole in his wall. The same thing helped Shawshank get into people's minds for years. One watch and one suggestion at a time. By 2019 the movie had been at or near the top of IMDb's user-ranked list of the best movies for more than 10 years. It ranked higher than favorites like Citizen Kane and The Godfather. Lothian and Nikes started out as a commercial failure turned into something much bigger than just a hit at the box office. It had become an important part of American culture. How to visit the Mansfield prison today. Shawshank tourism. In an interesting twist on the movie's legacy, the Ohio State Reformatory where Shawshank was shot has been turned from an empty, falling-apart prison into a major tourist attraction that gets over 100,000 visitors a year. Lothian and Nikes said it's amazing to think that a jail that was once known for having horrible conditions is now being kept open thanks to a movie about how people can win. People from all over the world visit the site where Andy and Red's story was told. People can walk the same rooms that were used in the movie, see Andy's cell, and even look at the tunnel he used to get away, which was made for the movie but is now a permanent installation. The prison's other purpose has been almost completely overshadowed by its part in movie history. The people of Mansfield, Ohio have taken pride in this history and have built a Shawshank Trail that includes over a dozen filming sites in the area. Lothian and Nikes' forays have been big. For example, tourism has brought new life to an area that had been losing its factories. This change from a place of punishment to a place of worship shows yet another level of redemption. A jail that used to be built to break people's spirits now honors a story about how those spirits can't be tamed. The reason why Shawshank lives on. The Shawshank Redemption is getting close to its 30th anniversary, which makes people wonder why this movie has stayed so popular while other critically acclaimed movies have become forgotten. Morgan Freeman may have given the most logical reason. Shawshank is about a part of all of us that feels trapped by our situations, our mistakes and our regrets. Lothian and Nikes but he placed of was a voice for ourselves. He also said that the movie doesn't say that having hope is important. It takes you on Andy's journey and shows how hard it is to hold on to hope. So Red's line about how hope is a dangerous thing really hits home. The movie knows it's not easy to have hope. It has to be done, but it's scary. Shawshank is more than just an inspiring story because it shows hope as both salvation and risk. It recognizes the full complexity of the human situation while also reaffirming our ability to heal and connect with each other. Director Frank Darabont summed up the movie's lasting attraction. Shawshank is about the things that can't be taken away from us: our basic humanity, our ability to make friends, and our ability to find meaning in even the worst situations. This story will speak to people as long as they feel limited by their lives. These days, commercial entertainment often seems pointless. Shawshank Redemption is a warning that the stories that touch our hearts the most are the ones that aren't meant to be seen. These are the ones that take the longest to fully understand. Like Andy Dufresne, it took a while to see how great the movie was. Lothian patiently showed itself to each watcher one at a time. Lothian patience shows remember why we love movies in the first place. Lothian patience fun rate says memory that shows us our greatest problems and the best hopes. We can respect the amazing skill that went into making this modern masterpiece by hearing what the cast and crew had to say. Every part of Shawshank was made with a lot of thought, from the real jail where it was filmed to the carefully planned character journeys and from the subtle musical progression to the symbolic visual language. But it never feels like it was planned. Instead, it feels like Darabont and his team didn't really make the story, they just found it. That might be why the movie has been so popular for almost 30 years. It's not like a show. It seems like truth dressed up as fiction. Remember that hope is good, maybe even the best thing, and that good things never die, as Andy tells Red. If you like these new ways of looking at the Shawshank Redemption, I encourage you to watch the movie again with fresh eyes. Find the patterns of sight we talked about. Pay attention to how the music builds up. Look at how the weather shows the mental journey. Pay attention to Brooks's story and how it leads up to Red's final choice. Please show this movie to someone who hasn't seen it yet. Being able to watch someone experience Shawshank for the first time is magical. A story that has moved many people's lives was found by them. Please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more in-depth looks at some of the best movies ever made. If you don't want to miss any of our posts, click the bell below and tell us what you think is the most powerful moment in the Shawshank Redemption. Don't forget to get busy living or getting busy dying. Until next time. Yes, that's right.